I've been eating a vegan diet for 3 years now, and at the start I felt like I already had a very good understanding of nutrition and how it affects the human body, but I feel through eating more of these plant-based foods, I've learned several new things and my perspective on certain nutrition principles have changed. So in today's video, I want to go through what I think I've learned and how it might help you as well. My primary concern, of course, when I transitioned was the age-old cliche, where on earth am I going to get enough protein on this vegan diet? I was getting in 240 grams of animal protein every day as an omnivore, and when I switched to veganism I thought, okay, we'll get 240 grams from plant-based sources as well, because I had to replace it 1-to-1, didn't I? The conventional bodybuilding knowledge back then was you needed 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, but the more I looked into the studies, there isn't really much convincing evidence for a gram per pound. There just isn't that much scientific literature to support that amount. Actual scientific data shows that optimal results can be achieved on a far lower protein intake. Of course, I was scared to take the plunge and bring the number down, but I did. And when I noticed that my gains didn't slow down, but instead continued at the same rate, me and my audience were left in no doubt that a stupidly high protein intake is not necessarily going to get you more gains. And this is the first major lesson I learned of consuming a vegan diet, which is that protein is overrated for muscle growth. It's overhyped, maybe that's the better way to phrase it. For me and for most people, the thing that is going to determine how much progress you're making in terms of muscle growth is going to be how effective your resistance training is. And your body's primary fuel source for resistance training is stored carbohydrate in the form of muscle glycogen. It is not protein. So my advice, regardless of what diet you choose to follow, whether you're a vegan, plant-based individual, whether you like to consume a vegetarian, pescatarian, omnivorous diet, whatever diet you choose to follow, give some consideration to the balance of carbs and proteins. Bring your protein down a bit, increase your carbs. They're both 4 calories per gram, so you can swap them in 1 for 1. It's easily done. Profit from the result, repeat indefinitely. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt, and it's all good in the hood. Another thing I've learned over these 3+ years is that a significant percentage of acne triggers are dietary. Back in the day, I was told by doctors that acne is not linked to the food you eat. I think this dates back to a study that was done in the 60s with chocolate and acne, and they gave people chocolate and some people's acne didn't get worse, so they concluded that there was no causal link between diet and acne. But since then, a number of methodological flaws have come to light that basically prove that that study is a load of rubbish, which is surprising that only 3 years ago doctors were still referring to it as conventional knowledge, which is a little bit bad, but whatever, we'll brush over it because I figured out for myself that acne is definitely related to diet because my skin has got a whole lot better since switching to all plant foods. I mean, it is kind of common sense that diet would affect your skin. Why wouldn't it? I mean, you eat a load of junk food, the next day you wake up with a load of spots and pimples. Go figure, they're linked. I think one of the biggest things for me was dairy. Dairy is not meant for humans, it's meant for baby cows, aka calves, and calves I do not have. RIP me, team no carbs over here. But back to dairy, I was pounding the whey protein in particular, which is obviously derived from whey, which is the curds that come from milk. So I was eating a lot of dairy, and a lot of the science actually shows that dairy in particular, something to do with the particular types of proteins, have a very adverse effect on your skin. So if you're struggling to have clear skin, consider reducing or eliminating dairy from your diet, especially if you're addicted to cheese. Fortunately, I was never really a big fan of dairy. Yes, I was pounding the whey protein shakes every single day, but that was just because conventional knowledge back then was that you needed to in order to get massive. Fortunately, now I realize that that is not the case. I consume a plant-based protein powder, the Perform protein powder from Viva Life, which I highly recommend. And I'm glad I no longer have to consume the whey protein shakes because they just didn't make me feel good either. Like, it would just hold up inside my digestive system, make me feel all. That's definitely an adjective, by the way. Go look it up in a dictionary. Don't ask me how to spell it though. The final thing I've learned from eating a vegan diet is just about the sociological impact of only consuming plant foods and abstaining from consuming animal products, because when you try and sit down in a social setting to have food with everybody else, obviously you don't necessarily eat what they do, and that can lead to some social tension. A lot of clients have come to me and said, how do you deal with this? Most of the time people are just interested in what you're doing and they're not looking to set out to criticize you, even though it may seem that way. As long as you don't criticize them, let them see you as a shining beacon, an example of how well you can thrive on a plant-based diet. And who knows, maybe they'll include a few more plant-based meals in their diet, which is a win. This is the approach that I take. People at the end of the day are gonna do what they wanna do. I'm not trying to force veganism on anyone. Instead, I'm showing them how well they can do if they choose to give it a try. and then maybe they'll come round to it of their own accord rather than being force-fed it. Nobody will take on board advice that is being forced upon them. They have to want to receive it. When people are interested in what I'm doing, I say, look, yeah, it's working really well. Here's what I've noticed, yada, yada, yada. And then if they want to pick my brains on things, they can, including asking me the question of where I get my protein, because I have an answer ready for that at any time of the day. Hopefully some of you can relate to some of the things I've talked about in this video and that you did enjoy it as well. Hope you'll stick around. If it's the first video of mine you've watched, plenty more content coming to the channel soon. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.